Hello and welcome to another episode of eBay Scavengers at ebayscavengers.com. This is episode number 69 and we are talking to Wendy. I'm Ryan. We're here with Wendy.
Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Wendy. You and I haven't talked for a while. So what has been going on in your store here?
Well, as you probably remember from last time, Mike and I recorded a podcast. I was just feeling blue and sad about my store because I think we were all agreeing that this year feels a little slow for this time of year, but it really also had a lot to do with it. I wasn't listing, and Mikey's bogged down with some electronics projects, and so I got off my ass and I started listing more. And I noticed that as soon as I started listing, we started getting sales. And it's not the stuff I had listed. It always has me thinking that there's something on at eBay where when you start listing, you get re-indexed or something, but you get more attention. So that was immediately rewarding. And I also, just as a broad thing, because it's been slow and we really want to move some old inventory, we just put our whole store on OBO. And we've pretty much accepted like any sane offer.
Wow. Yes. I think that makes a big difference when you are just like, everything's on offer. Let's just sell stuff. Like, things are slow. Let's just take offers and get stuff moving.
Yeah, that's what I was feeling like. And, I don't know about you. I wanted to ask you this today, but do you ever get tempted to go into your, like, deep archives of storage and weed stuff out and get rid of things? Or, because I think like that. And then, like, the next day after I have that thought, someone buys, like, the weirdest thing that I would have thrown away.
Yeah, I have a similar thing, but it's not so much going into the archives and throwing it away. It's more of let's just make it a lower price, and see if that helps the sale. Even if it's like, I have a couple, a small handful of things in my store that have been there for so long, but I'm like, I've waited this long. I just need to make the price really, really low, like some ridiculously low amount, and just get it. I already took the pictures of it and everything, so I just wanted to go.
That makes sense. I hear you. Yeah, so this week did perk up a little bit, and it was really comforting to start to see the usual sell. So for us, that's belts and belt buckles and sports coats and caps and knives and some clothes, which was really exciting, and just our usual like odd lot of vintage items. And we even saw some of our regional specific stuff coming through, like Native American themed things. Mm-hmm. And oddly, this week I sold yet another vintage sun lamp, which is very, very peculiar because I live in New Mexico where there's nothing but sun.
So do you find those often? They're like what, like wintertime sun lamps or something?
They're like bulbs that can tan your skin, and they have like a full spectrum light, and they're usually from like the 70s. And I find them at yard sales fairly often, and that's insane. Here's what I suspect. They lived somewhere else, somewhere dark and dreary and sunless, and they had these sun lamps because of it. And then they moved to New Mexico, and then 30 years later, they had a yard sale, and there went the sun lamps.
That must be it, because I actually have not seen those around here. Now that you mention it, I'm sure I'll see them everywhere, but I haven't noticed those before in my scavenging.
So weird that you'd find them here. So anyway, that's always funny to me. I always get a chuckle when I sell a sun lamp here. A couple of unusual things that happened this week were we had some shipping, what I'm now calling shipping runaways, which is when folks buy something, and because we don't use the eBay International Global Shipping Program, we just ship direct from here. People get their shipping number from us at, the shipping amounts, and they like flip out. So we had two people this week, one who bought a vintage down coat and another who bought a ukulele. I think it was like a Russian buyer and something European, and they bolted due to international shipping being high. And then we had a third international buyer who bought a fireproof jumpsuit in France, and he did not run from the $40 shipping charge. So anyway, I now have a term for it. We're calling them shipping runaways.
Yeah, that's a great term. That certainly does happen when, someone's like, wait, how much does it cost to ship? Can't you do it cheaper? And you're like, no, I can't. I just can't. There's nothing cheaper with tracking.
And some people just don't seem to care a bit. I realize economies are different in different, parts of the world. And I think some people are just like, yeah, who cares? $40. So to finish my week, and then I want to hear about yours, I'll tell you the craziest thing that happened this week. This is a first timer for sure. I found a JanSport backpack that was my own. I had it, Mikey said, you had that when I met you, and that was 12 years ago. And I never really used it, and it's kind of weird. It has like this big rubber bottom. I thought it was cool. I went on Terapeak. I saw the JanSport has high resale. Put it up for $99.
Wow.
I sold it within a day. Yeah, I sold it within a day. I let the guy do an OBO, and I said, I'll take 80. I was totally just wanted to move it. And here's the weird thing. He said, I'm going to buy this from you now, but I don't know when I can have you ship it to me. He's in London. He was thinking maybe he'll have me ship it to someone he knows in New York. Maybe not. Maybe in April. He doesn't know.
April.
But
wow.
he was like, can I buy it now and you'll ship it to me sometime down the road? And I was like, yeah, but why do you trust me? I mean, he can trust me.
Right.
I am going to ship it. But I could close my store down tomorrow and never come back,
Right. Well, what's interesting is you said on your notes that might be penalized by eBay because you have not marked it as shipped, right?
So actually, I take a little bit of an injury on that because of that fact. But I took his money and I'm going to sit on it. And I was just blown away by his trust. And I thought, damn, you can't find a backpack in London?
That's so funny. Are you guys top-rated sellers right now? Maybe you had the little top-rated seller thing, so he trusted you,
Yeah, I believe that we are stable on being a top-rated seller right now. We did just lose something. I can't remember what. It was due to a half a point of item not described correctly. It was this marginal little thing. We lost some status, but I don't think it was that.
Yeah, you might just be on probation or something. They have a new thing now where you might something like that.
I think that's exactly right. It's probation.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the latest and greatest in my little store. And
I'm glad things are picking up for you. That's good. I know it's really a bummer when things are slow.
Yeah. But, I have to admit, I'm not listing. So I have to get off my ass a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we're getting in a groove.
Good. Yeah, now's the time because it's holiday time. So
I was looking at your store before you rang me, and I had a question for you right away. As I was curious to know what your number count is. How many items do you have listed right now?
As of today, I was just listing this afternoon. We have 2,909 items listed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I am trying desperately to get to 3,000 just because it's such a huge number. I'm like, come on, 3,000.
Wow.
But yeah, it's really, it takes a lot of work to list that much. I just sit down and I list. I've been going on a listing tear lately because I have so many high dollar items that I want to get up for the holidays. So that's been my real motivation. So
yeah, I noticed you're doing less best offers, right? Because you're putting up high end goods that you're confident in.
Now there's two points to that where I have been putting up some high end art. Like today I listed some art, 2 different original paintings, and I listed them for $2,000 each. I haven't found any others that have sold for that much. Some have sold for less at Christie's. So I'm just okay, well, it's a known artist, so I did $2,000 with best offer. But I have been doing less best offer only because I've been listing for so long that I'm I know what I can get for this item. Small things like shoes and sweaters and jackets. I'm I know how much I've sold this. I've sold this kind of jacket 1,000,000 times before. I know how much it's worth, You
guys are really good at having staples. I've never seen anyone move more denim jackets.
Yep. Yeah, it's so funny. There was someone in our town, our little town that we live in, And he was like, yeah, I was looking for denim jackets on eBay, and all I saw was your face. He actually saw Jay. So it was really funny. We're like, yep, we sell denim jackets. We find them all the time.
That's really funny. So,
Yeah.
are you able to identify these this original artwork that you're selling? Are you able to identify the artist based on the signature?
I was able for this one. He had a signature on the back. It was a label for his studio. So I was able to identify it that way. If it's not signed, that makes it a lot more difficult. You know, some of the things we put up are just like basically like amateur artists painting like funky kitsch stuff, or crazy landscapes, or just weird portraits or something. And those are, people still love those. Like, people still, it doesn't matter if it's signed or if it's signed by like Ethel Smith. Like, it doesn't matter as long as it's kind of a cool vintage look. So I find I have great success with weird kitschy art, mostly kitschy art.
Yeah, I do okay, but I think I could probably improve the language of my listings on those.
Yeah, I think it really, especially if it's not signed, or if it's signed by an unknown artist, just an amateur artist, it's good to just really do keywords like kitsch landscape, or kitsch portrait woman with 1930s style or something. You really have to just fill in the keywords so that anyone looking for that type of artwork can find it. But it's difficult when you're first starting, because you're like, what is this? I don't know what this is. It's a portrait.
Yeah, the buzzwords really help. Like, I noticed in your store you just sold some boomerang ashtrays. I have quite a few of those ashtrays, and my prices were probably even a little lower than yours, but I didn't call them boomerang. You knew the language.
Well, now I know it because I really searched for it. I was just like, what is this called? Like, it's kind of this like atomic age, but I saw someone else say boomerang, and I was like, that's exactly what the shape is. So I just threw that in there, and now I'll always know it.
Funny. Well, I don't know if you started it or they started it, but I'm following.
Yeah. Absolutely. That helps, because that's what people look for,
Well, that's cool. I love seeing you sell art just because it's something I'm interested in. So you're giving me the inspiration to take a chance on art. I was hysterical when I saw that you sold a box of vintage baking tins for $20.
Yeah, I had these little, they're little Norwegian baking tins. They're tiny, too. They're like these little tiny tins for making these, like, they're called Norwegian sugar cookies. Sometimes just with weird little products like that, I just list it high. It was actually, I sold them for $17, which most people sell them for like $8. But I was like, you know what? Yeah. These are so cool. They're totally from the 50s. Someone could use them to decorate, or they could use them to actually bake. And it's the holidays, so people are baking. So I was like, $16.99. And they sold like overnight.
I think you just sold something else that might be due to holidays, which I had given up on, which is those vintage warming trays with a glass top.
Yeah.
So I got tired of having them around. They're a little bulky. I moved them over to my local consignment store, and I just saw you sell one, and I was like, oh, I should have waited for the holidays because everybody needs a warming tray.
Yeah, it's so funny because the one that I sold, I've had for a few years. I, too, had kind of given up. So it's kind of funny. I'm like, I gave up 2 years ago, and then I sold it. But just like you said, the problem with those warming trays, sometimes they're really cool. Like, they have such awesome designs on them. Right. They're bulky. Like, this thing was like 20 inches long, and it's got a glass top. So I had to pack the crap out of this thing because it's going to like California. I mean, it doesn't matter where it's going. It's going to get thrown around in a truck, but it's like, you got to be careful with those. So yeah, I don't know if I would get especially the glass ones anymore, because they're just so delicate.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I like them. I'm attracted to them because I think they have really great style.
Yeah, I agree.
I have fantasies of like making a wall out of them.
I know, but they're so funny, and they usually always work because they just have like a little heating element in them. There's no like moving parts or anything.
Right. They're simple.
Those are great. So I had a question for some of our listeners. Actually, I had a couple of questions. Now, Jay and I don't know about Mikey and Wendy if you guys use the automatic return program.
We don't.
Yeah, we don't either. And I'm just
Oh,
curious.
I take it back. Mikey says we do.
Oh, you do use the automatic return program. Okay, so I guess maybe I'll ask you guys too. Like, what are the pros and cons of using eBay's automatic return program? My worry is that when people want to return something, they're going to say either item not as described or item is defective, and then whether it is or not, and then we would have to pay all shipping costs, which generally we don't do now. You know, someone's like, these shoes don't fit. I'm like, great, return it. I'll return the price of the item, and you're responsible for all the shipping because that's just the deal.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think we should probably shelve that question for Mikey's next turn at bat because he's been fielding them.
Okay, good.
And I don't know the answer.
And another request that I had was I would love to hear more from other people who sell on eBay in other countries besides the United States. I would love to hear from people who are really into scavenging like vintage items in different places. Like, where do you find stuff? Because here in the United States, I mean, there's just stuff everywhere. I mean, the thrift stores and the yard sales are just full of cheap, amazing vintage and antique stuff everywhere. But I wonder what it's like in other places. I mean, I know what it's like in certain parts of Europe. It's very difficult to find things. For us anyway, it was difficult. But I'm just wondering where people are getting their stuff.
It's a great question. And, you know, even in the United States, when we hit the road this summer, we were really surprised, you know, like new neighborhoods with new homes and people who have cars with loans and are living lives on credit, where everything's new in the suburbs. We found that there was nothing to look at those yard sales. Yep. Everything was like the Gap and Target. So, you know, there's pockets in the States, too, where you might even find poverty, but the best vintage goods.
I find that to be true. I mean, both of us live in small rural towns in the United States, and I have so much stuff to list that we had to rent a storage space because we couldn't fit it in our house. You know, it's like, how is this possible in both our tiny little towns, you know?
It's crazy. It would be great to hear what people have to say about, especially Europe. I'd love to hear from some eBay people in places that seem exotic to me, like islands, you know, people in Asia, like, you know, what is the culture like there?
Yeah, I would love to know, like, are there people scavenging in those parts of the world? And, I mean, I found also another restriction internationally is shipping. Because a lot of the shipping that you do in Europe is, you know, like British Royal Mail is privatized, and like the Netherlands Post, I think that's what it's called, Netherlands Post, they're private now too. So their prices are a little bit higher. I just wonder how. I feel like we have such a luxury with the post office where I just print my labels at home and stick my stuff on the front porch, and I don't have to do anything besides that. That is a huge bonus for my business. So I just wonder what that's like in other places.
I feel the same way. Like the mail system could change here, and it could, you know, put me in a position of deciding if I would do this anymore.
Exactly.
Because exactly what you described makes this so attractive in so many ways.
So we have a few questions from listeners. We have 3 questions, and let's see. The first one I think is probably perfect for you, Wendy. And it's from Mr. Vintage, who we interviewed a few weeks ago about buying and selling cars. He says, could you share with us the best ways to use Terapeak for analytics? Would you share in detail how you look up and decipher the info?
Okay, let's see. I'm going to actually go on Terapeak while we're doing this. I think what we find valuable about Terapeak might seem incidental. It might seem small. It's really like the ease of data. So you're standing at a yard sale, you have your phone in your hand, and you can quickly get not just, oh, I see this sold before, oh, I see it sold here, there, and there for about this much, but you get those compressed numbers like percentage sell-through, average shipping. I'm going to put an item in right now.
Will you explain the sell-through rate?
Yeah, I guess I'm probably interpreting it a little bit myself, the way that I make that number meaningful. If I see like 27% sell-through, I imagine that that means I'm going to sell this item. It might sit in my inventory for 7 or 8 months. If I see 50%, I know I'm going to sell it, and
Gotcha.
probably pretty soon. So, I'm using it that way, and it may not be exactly as intended, but it is a way to use it that seems to be accurate in my life. If you get like a over 50% sell through, there's pretty much no doubt you're going to sell it. Here we
Cool.
go. So the data numbers they give you are average price, which is pretty great, but it leaves out the ends. It leaves out the high end and the low.
Mm.
Average shipping, super duper useful. Starting price, the number of listings on eBay is an interesting number. And then percentage sell through. I pretty much look at average price and sell through. One way that I find Terapeak beneficial too is if I'm listing items and I'm trying to figure out how to price something. If I want to move it fast, I'm just going to take that average selling price from Terapeak and use it.
Gotcha.
If you want to play the high, I know that I could up that number quite a bit and play a waiting game. But if I take the average price, it's a pretty sure bet that it's gonna move.
Great. That's a great answer. I think that's really helpful to hear that information about Terapeak. That sounds like really helpful data.
Another application for it, which is not perhaps as was intended by Terapeak, but which I do all the time, is I'll just take a subject I don't know a lot about, but I want to know a lot about. So when all the yard sales have tons of Christmas ornaments, I keep thinking like, there's one in this pile that's really valuable from like Germany 100 years ago, and I don't know how to see it. I don't know how to look for it.
Mm.
So I'll go to therapy and just put in Christmas ornament and study the data and be like, okay, this is what I need. Now, arguably, you could probably do that in eBay. Yeah, I don't know. Does eBay give you what didn't sell mixed with what did?
You can choose either. You can say all completed listings or just sold listings. So sometimes if
That's
I'm looking for something where I'm like, what the hell is this? I'll search everything just to see, did anyone else even explain what this is? Or what was their starting price?
Do you do the same thing I'm describing? Do you ever just go into completed listings as a study and like look up Christmas ornament and like say, what do I not know about Christmas ornaments that I should?
Yeah, I definitely do that. Where you're like, okay, what are the names of things that people are looking for? Like you said, are they looking for crystal? Are they looking for handmade? Are they looking for primitive? Like what are the highest selling Christmas? So when I'm out shopping, I look for those things. It's really funny. Something that's similar. It's kind of a similar idea to that. I started watching old episodes of Antiques Roadshow. I've learned so much. It's like a similar idea where you're just randomly watching this show and all these things come up like old paintings or like old pottery and you're like, oh my God, I've seen that, I've seen that thing at auctions
Yeah.
before. Now I know I have to buy it. So that's
Yep.
kind of, that reminded me of that where you're just like, they could be talking about anything on Antiques Roadshow, but I've learned so
Right.
much from that show. So that's a good thing. Go stream Antiques Roadshow because that's an education right there.
Yeah, it's shocking. I mean, just for sake of this conversation, I pulled up Terapeak. I typed in Christmas ornament, and right now I'm staring at a Christmas ornament that I could bet you that I've seen, and it's an antique German Kugel grape cluster that just sold for $4,000.
Whoa, you got to keep your eye out for that.
No kidding. And I think another category like Christmas ornament where there's so much crap out there is children's toys. Like buried in there, every now and again, you're going to tap some special toy that's old and special and amazing. So
The next question is from Brian Boberg, who's asked us a few questions before, and he's active on our blog. He says, do you know why eBay sometimes charges a final value fee on shipping and sometimes it does not? It appears to only be charged for priority and express mail, but maybe it's just a dollar figure for shipping and not a specific type of shipping. I read the fee info on eBay's site, but it seems very vague. Now, my understanding is that they charge 9% on all shipping. If you do free shipping, they don't charge a final value fee on shipping.
that's a very interesting piece of data, though, that if you do free shipping, they don't charge anything.
Right. That's one thing that they've tried to push, like free shipping, then you don't get charged a final value fee on shipping. But it's just, we've talked about it before, but it just does not work. For me, it does not work. Free shipping does not work.
Yeah, it could be too wild a terrain. You can get a lot of surprises, I imagine.
Yeah, that's just way too scary. I mean, you and us, we sell such random stuff that it's like, I just, mailed a 15-pound lamp. So it's like, I sent that priority mail to California. Like, how am I supposed to, that's like so expensive.
Right. And, a backpack to London can cost $40. It's
Right.
really, it can be surprising.
Yeah, and so when people say build that into the price, I'm like, what are you going to do? Yeah, I don't know. Charge $150 for that backpack, but I guess they know they're going to pay shipping. I don't know. It's like a psychological thing.
Well, I think the problem is when they're searching and shopping and they see your item priced so high, they may not be computing at that moment that the shipping's free, so they're just going to pass.
Right. Now, the next question is from someone named Mark. He asks, I am a new eBayer looking to work full-time. Assuming he means on eBay. I hear you guys making references to buying an item for $1 and flipping it for $30 to $40. How do you do this? Can you explain this in more detail? I typically spend anywhere from $3 to $10 and make a profit of only $15 or $20. What do you look for in an item to make enough profit? I seem to be having a difficult time with this. My first bit of advice is to go listen to all of our podcasts. And you'll hear.
Well, the other thing is, it sounds like a little bit like this listener needs to negotiate better at the point of sale. That was really hard for me in the beginning. I never wanted to haggle. My mom used to do it, and it used to make me crazy. But now, I'd get embarrassed. But now I see that it's the way that everybody does this thing. So I feel comfortable. So when I'm checking out, I'll be like, how much for all of this? And they'll be like, $18. And I'll be like, I'll give you 12,
Yeah, automatically talk them down. You're like,
Yeah. So I think, they just have to start believing that they should get everything for $1. We should probably have a whole podcast, Ryan, just on haggling.
What? That's a great idea.
Yeah, techniques, heroes of the craft.
Yeah.
My mother.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Interview the moms about that one. But another point I wanted to make was you can't be afraid to put things up for a high price. That's something that I think people are afraid to do because they're like, there's no way someone would pay this much. And you know what? They might not. So make an offer on it. A lot of times, I've been putting up really, really high priced items lately because I bought things that I'm like, I'm putting this up for $1,500 with make an offer. And I bet you someone will offer me $1,200 for it. And I'll be laughing because I bought it for, $10, whatever it is, some artwork or whatever. I think it's not being afraid of putting things up high and also doing your research. So if you're going to pay $10 for something, is it worth only $10 or is it worth $1,000? Is it worth $100?
I agree. Yeah. And, that reminds me of a question I had for you today, which is I've been noticing you have some really sensational coats. And I'm wondering what your high-low range is for investment on those coats. Like how much are you willing to go in on a coat?
That's a good question. Now, we used to buy coats individually from Goodwill and stuff, and Goodwill coats can be between $5 and $10. We have so many coats in our inventory that I'm like, we're only getting coats from our local thrift store that we can buy in bulk. It's just so cheap. So that's my technique. We find jackets that are worth hundreds of dollars sometimes. And we're like, what? Nobody noticed this? Cool. I just got it for $0.25.
Wow. I remember when you visited me, you came over, we went to the thrift shop, and Jay spread his arms as wide as he could and took everything on the rack in one swoop yeah.
Yep. I think back then, so that was a year and a half ago, we were really, because we sell a lot of coats. I mean, we sell a lot of men's coats, but we've been cutting back just because they take up a lot of room, and sometimes the higher end coats, depending on what they are, they're a little bit slower to sell, and they mostly only sell in the winter. So,
Right, unless you're in Australia.
yeah, unless you're in Australia and you're willing to pay the price to ship it over there, it's all about getting them for as cheap as possible.
Guess what we said to our seller? If I could summarize for us, Ryan, our answer to his question between us was buy low, sell high.
Buy low as much as possible and sell as high as you think you can get. Don't be shy about putting up high prices and make me an offer. That's our basic technique.
I'm glad for both of us that we had a decent week, and it seems like both of our stores actually did pick up speed a little bit.
Yes, I have noticed that, and I am thrilled that stuff is selling for, I'm assuming this week is Thanksgiving, so we're all hoping that, Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday are going to be like crazy big days, I hope.
Yeah, as Mikey said, this is the week where people sit at work and pretend to work, but actually buy crap on eBay.
I hope so. Cross your fingers.
All right, so I think this might be a wrap for just the portion of our podcast today, which is what's going on in our stores.
Yes.
Lined up next, we have an interesting podcast on a new subject, which is selling slides on eBay.